with acting, I'm not trained in acting. A lot of actors tell me that the school of acting is somewhat a load of rubbish. And acting is really about experience. And for me, the way I acted was through my body. I spoke through my body rather than through words. And at that age, maybe not so much, but the older I grew, I felt like for me, the emotional body is extremely relevant to me. And at the age of 14, I kind of stumbled across Peter Brook, or he stumbled across me. I was performing somewhere, and his assistant had seen me and said, "Oh, why don't you come to the audition?" So I went to the audition, and it was for a production by the Royal Shakespeare Company and a French company, collaboration. And it was a 2-year touring project before the film was made. And I thought, oh, great, world tour. But then when I turned up to the audition, there were, I think, 8 or 9 RADA students, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts students. And I think what Peter liked about me, and I'm kind of guessing, is with the actors that were there from RADA, they were very codified. And what Peter likes is to be able to mold you. And so, in a way, I had no experience in acting. And yet I was very physical, so he thought, okay, this is a 9-hour production. You're going to have to be physical to sustain 9 hours at the age of 14. And I think that's partly the reason why he took me, because I had the physicality, and also I had this kind of very unformed experience of what happens between 2 different disciplines. We're working with the oud player and a kanun, and a musician. And what's interesting is, what I gathered from here, from the way they think. And they think very differently to North Indian musicians, because that's how I was trained. And the way of thinking is more improvised here. And the way of thinking particularly, I've also trained a little bit in South Indian Carnatic music, especially the rhythm structures. The way we learn patterns is much more codified, if you like. And so there was a kind of disharmony in the beginning, but it was fascinating for me, because I would say, okay, write it down, 3 times this, 2 times that. Yeah, okay, tomorrow you'll be fine. Tomorrow comes. They do it 3 times, they do it 4 times, or sometimes 2 times. So, okay, write it down. Yeah, don't worry. By the time it comes to the show, it will be there. They refused to write it down. And I found that fascinating of how, and maybe that's the way they train, because actually it reminded me of, not the way my teacher taught me, but by the way his teacher taught him. And that's where the connection was. Because the way we learn Indian music traditionally, or before me, was very much not through writing, but through watching and repeating and observing. So we absorbed it through repeating it. It almost becomes hypnotic. It's like driving. When you drive, you don't look at a book and go, okay, put your foot down to the right to accelerate. You have to feel it. And you have to do it again and again until it becomes subconscious. So for me, it was very much about understanding that actually they have a different way of absorbing information. So once I picked that up, then I was like, okay, we're going to run it 20 times. Something as mad as that. So the musicians started running it again and again, and they started to absorb it. And for me, that was I think, the most interesting revelation for me in terms of process. What will happen in the result? Well, you'll have to see if it's 3 times or 4 times, how many times they would be. But I think also it's the language thing which fascinates me. It's because Ahmed plays the oud, and he's fantastic. They're both fantastic musicians. But he speaks a little bit of English, and he translates the little bit of English to his friend. It's like Chinese whispers. So you say, something like, I came to the theater this morning. And so you say it to the next, you say it to one person, and they say, he came to the theater. And you say it to the next person, and he says, he came. So it starts to transform. He came somewhere, And so in a way, there's this transformation because of language barrier. But what happens, I don't restrict it. I find it fascinating because actually what's happening is there's an organic evolution happening from my idea through my English into his interpretation of what I'm saying in English, transformed already. And then he instructs him something different. And so he plays something different. And that for me is a surprise. And so I use that in my work.